one, get in now. Get in early while the getting's good. And two, don't be overly reliant on it, because if Google is, we've said a couple of times, Facebook ripped off Google wholesale with Advantage Plus. And if that's true, then it stands to reason that they're going to experience the same faults and flaws. What do you think?
I think that's the case with everything. It pays to be in early. The more competition there is, the more for inventory, no matter what kind of campaign it is, the inventory is still the same across
Right.
Meta suite of products. And, if you're not early, then you're going to pay the price later. Things never get cheaper, right? So if you're first to market or first in within trying one of these new things, you probably could benefit from some initial cost savings, but over time you have to expect that the cost is going to go up. And same thing with like all their talk about Reels. It's fairly new on Instagram, and it's only going to continue to grow, but there's not a whole lot of people taking advantage of it.
Could the argument be made on the Google side with Performance Max is that the vast majority, correct me if I'm wrong here, Costin, the vast majority of the inventory that Google was trying to sell and monetize, because it was basically just sort of junk with the exception of retargeting, is the display network, which the argument could be made that's not quite as high quality of traffic as there might be in the Facebook news feed, on Instagram Reels. At some point in time, they're going to monetize WhatsApp. So the runway for not only adoption, but effectiveness on Performance Max was limited just due to the limitations of where the inventory lies. If you're following my line of rationale here,
I think
basically traffic on display was always crap. And then they put, Performance Max in, it's like, whoa, now it's great. And maybe all the good inventory in Performance Max or good inventory on Display Network had a finite lifespan. So that's why it's starting to burn out for you. Could that argument be made?
It could. The problem is Google doesn't give us a lot of data on placement. It gives us some, right. And there's a lot of ways you can reverse engineer it, but it's difficult to see where your ads are being shown. So it's a really good guess. Oh, dude, it's actually brilliant. It's like, trust me, I put it out there. Someone saw it. Won't tell you when, where, how, in what context, or in what way, but it happened.
I got you, man.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of you.
And on a long enough timeline, I actually think Google's going to end up being right in what has to be their assumption, which is they're going to find a way to algorithmically monetize display-based inventory. What they couldn't do is they couldn't give us the interest-based segmentation Facebook did, because that results in privacy concerns and antitrust suits. But that would have been the way to improve their display, by the way, because display traffic Facebook's newsfeed is more or less display-based traffic, but Facebook lets you segment. So Google's display network could be more valuable, but they held back, and they held back strategically, I think. And now what they're trying to do is figure out how to get the AI to figure out how to get people to buy via display. And I do think they'll crack that code on a long enough timeline. But in the meantime, we're all the guinea pigs, and we're paying for Google's R&D. Right. So they're high-end traffic channels, search, shopping, discover in certain contexts, YouTube, specific campaigns. Google's not withholding, but using sparingly. And with PMax, you can force people into the higher end traffic channels. This is really interesting, actually. If you don't know this, if you're running Performance Max right now and you're like, I'm not showing up in search or standard shopping the way that I want to, go run a search or standard shopping campaign next to your Performance Max campaign. Here's what's crazy. Those campaigns will experience little or limited visibility, but your PMax will start to push into search and shopping. So you can force PMax where you want it to go by telling Google, if you don't do it, I will. And then Google all of a sudden pushes PMax into the higher value networks, which again is just frustrating. And I think given that Meta is rolling this out, I have a suspicion they're building it in the same way, and they're going to encounter the same issues. And I don't think Google realized they would encounter the dramatic swings in, what do you call it? It's almost inflation. It's like inflation in that, the more people that rushed into Performance Max, the more inflationary the environment came, maybe not as to the cost of the traffic, but to the value of the traffic, or the availability and accessibility of the higher value traffic. And I would anticipate the same thing happening with Meta. And maybe a little faster, because Meta has a fraction of the traffic that Google has. Meta doesn't have this massive display network to push all their crap traffic into.
Right.
That
was kind of my point, but anyway, go ahead, keep going.
No, I spoke too long. As I heard Tom talking about this, and I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but I was like, man, I've heard all this before. I got sold this bill of good by Google, and I bought it. Not only did I bought it, I resold it. I bought wholesale, and then I started selling to everybody else. And for 2 years, we were the Performance Max agency, and now I'm sitting here eating great big bowls of crow every day. And it's just interesting to see how the pendulum swings. I had a conversation on Facebook. I write a Twitter thread every day, as you know, Ralph, and I post it to all my socials. So go follow me on Twitter if you want my threads. But I had a thread that resulted in a conversation about how to market for penalized products or services. So if there's something Google and Facebook don't want you advertising for, and